Joker's Millions brings the Clown Prince of Crime back to the forefront for a story based on a comic book from the 1950s. It's more comedy-driven than usual, and you could tell writer Paul Dini and director Dan Reba had fun crafting this one. But is it entertaining enough for a recommendation? Joker is broke. He's so destitute that he can't even afford a fully operational acid flower for his jacket or an extra car ejector seat for Harley Quinn. The latter leaves Harley to take the fall for Joker's latest failed robbery as he escapes to his dingy, broken-down apartment, where he's apparently 2 weeks late on rent. But some good news does await him there.
A letter came for you today, Mr. Kerr.
To Joker's shock, it's a notification of inheritance from his longtime gangland rival, the recently deceased Edward King Barlowe. Inexplicably, he's left Joker his entire fortune of $250 million worth of cash, jewels, and gold. More than pleasantly surprised, Joker goes on a spending spree, first hiring a lawyer that somehow gets his whole criminal record wiped clean.
If a man's filled with glee, that man must go free.
Following this, Joker starts hanging out at Penguin's new Iceberg Lounge and spends his money on anything and everything, including the hiring of a replacement for the currently jailed Harley Quinn. Harley doesn't take kindly to finding this out and has a new bone to pick with Mr. J. As for Joker himself, though, he's living well, making Batman furious. But is this turn of fortune too good to be true? As I mentioned earlier, this episode was based on the Golden Age story in Detective Comics number 180. Named The Joker's Millions in that book, it has the same basic premise and beats that transpire here. You can also see an inspiration from the 1985 movie remake of Brewster's Millions, starring Richard Pryor and John Candy. That film was based on the 1902 novel with the same title. The novel has been adapted into stage plays, radio programs, and plenty of films, either directly or indirectly, in the century plus since its release. Among the adaptations, the Richard Pryor movie is still probably the most well-known. There are a wealth of funny bits here that work out pretty well. My favorite gag has to be when Joker is looking for his new Harley.
Too fat, too small, too old. No.
Darn!
I believe that's supposed to resemble Harley's co-creator and the writer of this installment, Paul Dini. The timing of that gag was perfect, and it gave me a few chuckles. Harley's reaction to the news was also pretty humorous.
Joker seeks new hench girl?
The stuff with Joker's lawyer was an obvious parody of Johnny Cochran from the O.J. Simpson trial, which was still topical in 1998. Funnily enough, he'd pop up again in Over the Edge. The psychiatrist Joker hires to help expunge his criminal record also gives us a hilarious visual bit.
He is a criminal, no more.
How do you respond to charges that Joker is simply bribing his way to freedom?
I won't even dignify that with a response.
Penguin makes his first new Batman Adventures appearance in another drastic redesign. He no longer resembled the more gruesome interpretation from Batman Returns. Now he seems like much more of a standard gangster who's hiding his misdeeds behind the front of his Iceberg Lounge. This establishment would pop up a handful of times across the DCAU. As for Penguin's new look and gimmick, meh. I like the evolution of the character to running a social club and keeping his nose clean on the surface, but I don't like the duller appearance. I know the creative team wanted him to look more like this when they first launched BTAS, but WB stepped in and wanted him closer to DeVito's version of the character. While this was closer to their original vision, the first design was much more interesting. It also helped build sympathy for him in an episode like Birds of a Feather. The episode overall looks alright. There wasn't much in the way of unique or especially beautiful shots or sequences. They show a montage of Joker spending his money that's a little lackluster and features him wackily driving past Bruce Wayne in a golf cart. Here's Bruce looking very concerned. A small aesthetic detail I really liked, though, was the addition of a quasi-title card at the top of the piece. I really missed these in the transition from the animated series to TNBA. They cleverly put the title and writer/director credits on the giant computer in the background as Joker creates chaos during his newest criminal outing. In the middle of Joker's new lavish lifestyle, he's approached by an agent from the Internal Revenue Service. The agent informs him that he has to pay $137 million in inheritance taxes.
I'm crazy enough to take on Batman, but the IRS, no, thank you.
Panicking, Joker starts gathering the cash, but discovers almost all the bills are fake, with King Barlowe's visage on them. His lackey, Ernie, then discovers a videotape that shows King Barlowe in his final days.
Yeah, I left you some cash, but only 10 million, which knowing you've already blown. All the other stuff, it's all fake. I always hated your guts, and this was the perfect payback. The IRS is after you, and you can't admit I fooled you, or you'll be the laughing stock of the underworld. I got the last laugh after all.
Desperate, Joker attempts to rob a ship transporting boatloads of cash. He tries not to leave the usual trace that it was him, even having Ernie impersonate the clown at the Iceberg Lounge during the heist. Still, Ernie is found out by Batman, and the Dark Knight stops the robbery with Batgirl. Joker is then arrested and thrown in a paddy wagon with a very angry old friend.
It'll be nice to see the old gang.
One of them's dying to see you too, Puddin'.
Harley?
The one and only. Welcome to the club.
Harley beats her old flame with a billy club as the van drives off, and the story comes to an end.
If I don't pay my taxes, I'll go to jail. But if I admit Barlowe duped me, I'll look like a fool.
The whole idea that Barlowe gave Joker a mostly fake inheritance is a little flimsy, but it turns out fine when you see the tone of the episode. His appearance on the videotape was great. Joker not wanting to admit someone got the better of him is a decent explanation why he wouldn't tell the authorities the truth about the money too, so that's all on-brand stuff. They did get me on this last rewatch with Ernie dressing up as Joker at the Iceberg. I thought it was one of those small animation mistakes when we see Joker's eyes reverting to a closer rendition of how they looked in BTAS, but no, it was just his goon in disguise. Batman gives Ernie a swirly for his troubles.
Let me jog your memory.
This isn't anywhere close to the best Joker episodes, but it's a serviceable production with some amusing scenes that should give you a few laughs. I'd still recommend it. Oh, and don't forget to pay your taxes.